be the video for the Southern California WDR Group. Thanks for inviting me to speak today from Fisher Compliance. And we're going to jump into 5 different areas, starting with Autism Enforcement, talking about a review of some of the things that are typically covered in the program, some do-it-yourself recommendations for effectiveness, how to improve effectiveness of your program, how to improve resiliency for compliance against regulators or NGOs for your program, and a few compliance evaluation best practice tips, and end with some suggestions for improving the WDRs that Fisher Compliance came up with. So starting off with the Water Quality Enforcement Policy, this is something highly recommended. If you haven't looked at, I'm going to walk through a couple of the scenarios here to be aware of, particularly the economic benefit of noncompliance. So that's available here on the Water Board's website. Just looking through some of the highlights from this. Enforcement is a critical ingredient in creating the deterrence effect. Okay, and so if you scroll down through here, you'll see that this economic advantage over compliant members is something, again, the Water Boards is very serious about, takes very serious. For every formal action, they do an economic benefit evaluation. So for non-compliance, to make sure the level playing field and so forth. So you can read the policy to get more, but I'm going to run through some of the examples of the economic benefit of non-compliance just to keep you aware. So from verbal warnings all the way up through referrals to the AG, you definitely want to stay on the left side here. You don't want to be over having any kind of a technical investigation or any kind of an order. So we'll talk about that. Show a couple examples here. Here's the economic benefit again. Should be estimated for every violation, and it's the savings or monetary gain derived from the act or omission that constitutes the violation. So that's what these are. Best management practices that weren't put in place, the pump station that didn't get upgraded that should have been, on and on. So these are things that are looked at and something to be aware of and to stay away from. So definitely wanted to point that out. There are a couple things I want to point out to the Southern California audience are tools the Water Board now has to kind of visualize and more pinpoint where they're doing their compliance and enforcement. So this is right off one of their visualization charts here on the number of events and sorting it by region. All this data you can click on this data here to sort out and get this into a spreadsheet to better drill down on where all the spills are happening. So this is one chart. Another example, they have now a map where you can basically hover over any location geospatially in the state here, and the spill report comes right up. So that's something new to be aware of. I just learned about these fairly recently. Another one here, tracking the ongoing reporting compliance, which is surprising to me that it's going down. And these fairly later years here, the compliance is actually going down. There's more people that are failing to report on time for SSO reporting. So another thing to show. And just the overall metric, spill per 100 miles of pipe per year for everybody in the state. Again, this is something that's available for all the different size systems that the Water Board is tracking. A couple more to show about the enforcement and the inspections. Enforcement here, like who gets selected, is a very interesting chart here. Again, just basically showing kind of for Cat 1, 2, and 3s how many spills occurred and how many were enforced on and how many didn't receive enforcement for those spills. So this is a new chart. Again, another one here for Southern California, drilling down, showing the actual number of 198 Cat 1s that had enforcement here in the region. And so if you haven't been to your local Water Board website for enforcement, I highly recommend linking these, putting a bookmark on these, checking them periodically. This is the one for the Los Angeles Board. I've just got the ones highlighted for Southern California. This is a link for the Santa Ana Board here and their website, and then the San Diego Board. So each one of those 3 are good to keep aware of, so that if any new enforcement actions come out, you're aware and you can kind of see what's happened here to keep more apprised of what's happening. And so here's another example from CWIX that my company we regularly use in our evaluations of our audits to look at everybody. And so you can see here for region 4, region 8, 7, 8, and 9, you can kind of sum up how many violations have been tied to enforcement actions here and the percentage the boards are taking for all the violations that are in CWICs. Very interesting chart. And you can also go into here and drill down on these to get the actual list of the agencies that had enforcement. Okay, so moving on to some examples. This is a fairly recent, year or so or two ago. Laguna Beach had a big SSO and had a settlement. The more important thing to show here is not the amount that they paid in the liability, but what was used in the documents relied upon for the evidence package that was settled in this case. And that's the kind of thing I wanted to show here. The CX questionnaire, the spill reporting, the volume estimations, often even the SSMP, I'll show another example. So just to be aware, these are things that get drilled down on and heavily scrutinized when there's any kind of an investigation or inspection or an enforcement action by the board. So this economic benefit was huge in this one, and this was basically the board felt that this cost of $257,000 was an economic benefit derived from the city for avoiding the cost of bypassing this force main under non-emergency conditions. So there's more information available on this on the actual order if you want to go up and look at the Laguna Beach order, or email me. I have a copy of it. The other thing to point out I thought was really a positive thing for Laguna Beach, and another thing, a good best practice if you're going to be involved in an enforcement action, is to make sure that you have all the information at your fingertips to talk about the due diligence measures that you're doing. This one was actually listed right out in the order. This is awesome. The city initiated updating assessments and did all kinds of funding for capital improvements along that force main, revised the SSO response plan, on and on and on. So I thought this was great that in the order, the city of Laguna Beach was actually mentioned here for the things that they are doing right, and they're committed to moving forward after the spill. So there's another one here, the city of San Diego. This is another one just to point out again, a big final liability for this gravity system that failed. But really important thing to point out here, look at what the evidence package was used. The main items were used for the water boards in their investigation. The city of San Diego, SSMP, number 1. Number 2, the CWICS reports, other orders that the board issued. The economic benefit calculation, these are huge things that they're going to look at, but to highlight here again, the SSMP, if your SSMP is not up to snuff and ready for scrutiny, that's something to be aware of and something that you can do to be proactive to avoid any kind of problems later if it's going to be looked at by the boards. So I'm going to jump into some do-it-yourself tips. We have a lot of do-it-yourselfers here in the program for improving effectiveness. This is often an area falling short in a lot of the SSMPs I see. Everything's in compliance, more or less, but in terms of the effectiveness, how are you reducing spills? Are you staying on top of your program to reduce spills, to do everything you can? And these are the 11 elements that typically get done. These are the other things I would highly recommend not to forget about in doing your own evaluations of your programs. How are you implementing your SSMP? Training, standard operating procedures, SSO notification, reporting. I have a new tool right now for evaluating all the violations for spill reporting for agencies in the state. So again, that's something you should be doing, to looking at your reports. Are they on time? Are you doing your 3-day, your 15-day certifications on time? The notifications, are those within 2 hours for Cat 1s, etc. So again, these are areas not to forget about during the audits or during your own SSMP updates, and not just looking at the 11 elements above here that are required by the order. A couple other things I'm seeing in the audits that I'm doing. Some key performance indicators, KPIs, could be a lot more improved to really keep better track of what's going on with your sewer program. SSOs prevented, pump station failures avoided. I think these are areas of opportunity that often get left behind by agencies that are not tracking these close enough. So these are very important to keep track of. Key performance indicators, they can be done for every element in the SSMP. I've seen that done as a best practice. Definitely something that I'm recommending in the agencies I'm talking with. Other things like key performance indicators, production cleaning, your high frequency hotspot efforts, root foaming, and your costs, tracking contractors. All this good stuff should be tracked and you should be getting credit for these should an inspector come in or should the water boards ask about how are you doing with your program. These are things, again, you should be tracking as you're going through your own programs to make sure that you're highlighting those and getting credit for them if you're ever asked about those. We often get asked for resilience. With the new WDRs coming out, nothing's out yet, but when the new order comes out, obviously there are some things that you can be thinking about, things that you could already be doing under the current order if you want to be at best practice level. Here's a couple examples. I have more examples of these on my YouTube channel on Fisher Compliance. You can take a look at, but these are 5, 6 right here. Things you might ask yourself just to get going. Do you know where your next spill is going to occur? These are things that inspectors are going to ask and check on. Are you adequately operating and maintaining all parts? That's provision D8. Collecting data. Are you doing any predictive monitoring at all in the collection system? Any kind of pressures or temperatures or doing any kind of oil analysis on your pump stations? Again, you want that proactive card to be able to pull that card out should you have the big spill and the board come over and take a look, or the EPA. Number 4, are your ongoing sewer work programs adequately described and updated? A lot of the agencies I'm talking with don't have really good work program descriptions. It could be 1 page for every one of your work programs that you're doing. Again, to really satisfy the inspector, give you that added resilience, and make it easy to update your SSMP. You can just update those work programs. Number 5, how's the capital and the spending going? Are you budgeting and adequately spending resources as you move through your program? Are you able to show that, demonstrate that to an inspector? Are you testing the alarms? Are you documenting test results? So there's other examples and other presentations I have that go on and on. If you want more, or you want to email us to get more detailed information about what you can do yourself to improve your resilience. These are just examples, quick examples here. So moving into compliance best practices, I'm definitely, again, recommending reviewing the entire sewer program, not just the 11 elements in the SSMP, your MRP compliance, all the work programs you're doing that are implementing the SSMP. So not just going through the punch list, but looking more holistically at your sewer program. And definitely something I'm recommending for the people I'm helping. And I also recommend attempting to do an inspection like an inspector would from the EPA or the water boards, and really giving you that added resilience, that safety factor beyond just minimum compliance, and focusing on your effectiveness. These are things that are definitely recommending here as best practices. I'm going to show a couple examples of kind of the work that I'm doing here, just so you can get a flavor. This follows the work that we're doing, follows really the process that EPA and the water boards use for the desktop review, looking at your documents, doing a pre-inspection conference, a compliance evaluation inspection to the standards that are established by EPA and the water boards, and then doing that post-inspection review and doing the final audit report. So using this as the tool to do the audit rather than just going through and reviewing your program and coming up with findings. We're actually using a standard procedure here that has been established by EPA through the compliance inspection guidelines. So those are really important, we think, to really, and here they are, this is what it looks like kind of in the actual audit report, and looking at the inspection report using the EPA manual. And I'd be happy to help anybody that is interested in going through this to develop an inspection program for your own activities. Not a problem. Going to this document and actually using that to come up with a simulated program to inspect your own system. Looking at the different areas in the SSMP and the other elements of your program, and then doing interviews to confirm the information. This is exactly what is done by the water board. So this is the kind of information I'm highly recommending for the people I'm helping, and I'd be happy to help anybody set that up for your own program. This is another example of one of the audits I did here, and basically looking at the, not just D13I, the goal of reducing spills. Yeah, we're good, we're in compliance, we're being effective, but looking at the other related provisions more holistically to make sure that you're doing all you can to properly operate, manage, maintain, and reduce spills. You took all feasible steps, you're doing what you can with what you have in the event of an SSO, etc. These are all in the order, and the inspectors look at all these different provisions, not just the one in isolation. So another tip, and I always list the sources, of course, for all the systems that we're helping. We recommend the pre-inspection questionnaire. It's available, it's been out forever. The water boards use it for their punch list when they go out and do inspections, so don't forget about that. And doing that, and we rely on the compliance evaluation for the audit findings, so along with the data files from the water board's website on CWIX. So a couple other last thing to leave you with, some suggestions for improving the WDRs. My company came up with 4 or 5 suggestions. I'm going to run through these. These are presented at the mid-year CWA mid-year conference. Recommending an annual update of the 2010 Compliance and Enforcement Plan. The Water Boards has that published on their website on the SSO library, or actually on the actual SSO reduction program website. You can go take a look at that. So updating that would seem like a really good suggestion, because basically, the Water Boards laid out back in 2010 a process for doing compliance and a process for doing enforcement. I think there's more transparency that could be a big benefit to everybody by having something like this for the water boards. Another one is basically having a fix-it ticket approach for the smaller SSOs. Of course, this is just a concept. These numbers are really not intended to be final. This is just put into a table. If you have basically a first violation, second violation, 3 violation system or more, having some sort of a resolution to the smaller SSOs. There's tens of thousands of these in CWIX. They're small. A lot of them never get resolved. This would be a way for the deterring future violations, also helping the water boards improve their program, like using a fix-it ticket approach for many of the outstanding violations. Going along with that would be more of a streamlined process for large SSOs, having a system where enrollees could approach the boards to say, we'd like to close out these spills that have been on the books forever, and help the regulated community correct violations, deter future violations, again, and help the water boards improve their implementation with taking actions for many of the outstanding violations. Again, there's thousands and thousands of these in CWIX now. So for a formal implementation committee, they used to have, and maybe they still are doing, the data review committee. This would be something recommended for having a formal committee that might even be revised into any integrated into any revised WDRs for voluntary participation. Again, having a system where the water boards can have that added technical support for further improving their program going on forward, especially with the new order that's anticipated. So that implementation committee, going up to number 5 here, the biannual performance review of the WDRs. This used to be done up until about 2014-ish, 15-ish. Again, having a commitment from the board would be a good suggestion to really make sure that the WDRs, the performance of the WDRs are being measured, kind of like an audit from a system and agency. You're looking at the effectiveness of that over time, provide more resilience to the program, provide more compliance and enforcement transparency. So that would be number 5 to think about as another comment. So that wraps it up. On my YouTube channel, Fisher Compliance, you can go there. There are several training videos, a lot of training videos for do-it-yourselfers if you want to improve your program. Take a look at them. They're available. I'll put this one up as well after the presentation. And thanks for watching. I sure appreciate it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.